What's going on, guys? This is Richard, and welcome back to another stock market outlook video sponsored by MarketSmith. As always, we're going to run through the major indexes, talk about some key stocks as well, and at the very end of this video, I'll give you my overall take on the health of the market. As always, if you do enjoy my analysis and find it helpful, please go ahead and take the time right now to leave me a like down below. It just takes a few seconds and helps me out immensely. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one, as well as tutorials and interviews with top traders and investors. And as we go, if you have any thoughts to add, I'd love to hear them down below in the comment section. So yeah, go ahead and feel free to leave a comment down below. Give me your sense of what things really look like. So with all that said, let's dive right in with the chart of the Nasdaq Composite. Obviously, this is the key day right here, this Thursday. But to start things off, you can see before that, we had a very negative day breaking below this previous flag. We were below all the key moving averages at that point. So the expectation is that we are going to continue lower. However, after the CPI reading came out and there's kind of some sense that inflation might be showing some signs of slowing down, we had a positive expectation breaker because we thought we were going to go lower. And then instead we gapped up. And not only did we gap up, but we finished the day really strong. We closed right near the highs. And I think that's very key. If we had gapped up and then just gave it all back, filled that gap, it wouldn't have felt as powerful as that day actually was. So we finished right near the highs. We were back above that 50 SMA, challenging these previous highs. And then not only do we see strength for one day, but you can see the next day on Friday, we followed through and pushed above these important levels. So this day to me is a potential character change in the market and could lead to a tradable rally. I'm not going to say that we're in a new bull market, but we could have a nice stretch like we saw in these previous times where we got back above that 21 EMA and it started rising. I'd love to see, actually, given kind of what charts look like, a little bit of sideways action next week where we consolidate, at least in the indexes, let overall charts build handles, build kind of higher low type setups. Because right now, looking at charts this weekend, there's a lot of strong movement off the bottom, but then we have to see if strength actually holds and basically we don't just roll back over. So giving a few days rest in the market, I think, would set up a lot of great charts and allow us some basically great entries in some powerful leaders coming off the bottom, which we'll mention a few later on in the video. And also later today, I'll be posting my full watch list, which has a bunch of more ideas. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one as well. With that said, let's see what this looks like on the weekly chart. We pushed above these previous 2 weeks highs. We're still below the longer term moving average, the 40-week here, but we're back above that 10-week. Yeah, like I said, looks like a potential trend change, at least in the very short term, very similar to these previous times right here within this overall longer term bear market. You can see volume had a nice pickup as well, higher than the basically 2 previous weeks. And it looks like the highest in quite a while as well. So definitely a good thing to see. This index in general, the Nasdaq Composite, has been lagging a little bit versus the SPY and as well as the Dow Jones actually. So let's actually go ahead and take a look at the S&P 500 first and foremost. You can see this is a lot stronger. We're well above that 50 SMA, pushing towards that 200 SMA. And basically this is an area to watch. We'll have to see how we act versus this level. You can see it's acted as resistance around this area, as well as this area very clearly as well. And right now we're potentially short-term extended. Maybe we get that back and fill. And then I'd love to see us be supported. Let that 21 EMA kind of catch up to price. Let that 50 SMA start to curl up. Yeah, that would be very constructive. And as I mentioned before, would set up a lot of nice charts. And that key 4,000 level is kind of psychologically pretty big. So we'll have to see what happens there. But nice higher lows forming off the bottom. This day right here, 1013, I believe, was another kind of potential character change where we had another kind of bad news event, but we actually rallied strongly. And actually looking at kind of what Breath was doing, looking at the T2108 in TC2000, which is the percent of stocks on the NYSE above their 40-day moving averages. On this day, that metric made a higher low while the market kind of made a lower low. So that divergence kind of tells you that Breath was showing a little bit more strength than the indexes were revealing. And this turned out to be, an intermediate bottom at the very least, and led to a nice push upwards so far. And we'll have to see where this goes. No one knows where, this rally is going to end, or if we're just going to rally to all-time highs. We just have to wait and see. But for now, we're in a short-term uptrend above a rising 21 EMA. That's a great, very simple trend indicator to keep an eye on. and we're making higher lows, at least locally. So it remains to be seen whether we can, get above these highs. But right now, at least in the short term, things are looking good, and we just have to see how bad profit taking gets when it does eventually come. But we'll also have to see how individual stocks act as well, which we'll talk about later on in the video. Moving on to the Dow Jones, just because it is, a lot stronger than the rest of the indexes. This index only has 30 stocks in it. It's price weighted. It's not really kind of growth type stocks. It's kind of more defensive, really. So it's not one that I look at too much, and it's not a great gauge of the overall market environment. But you can see we're all the way above that 200 SMA. And once again, we're above a rising 21 and now 50 SMA. So this is kind of leading as of this moment, just something to be aware of. So that's the Dow Jones. Moving on, let's take a look at the Russell 2000 index, which is the IWM. Take a look at that ETF. You can see we're poking our heads above that 200 SMA. Not a great close on Friday, so I'd love to see, some consolidation and for it to firm up against that 200 SMA and then rally off of it. That would be ideal. That's also kind of a retest of this prior pivot as well. But we're back above a rising 21 EMA. 50 SMA is just starting to curl up, so things are looking good from the small caps, which is great. And if we can push through this 200 SMA, it would be a definite trend change, as you can see, or character change rather. You can see we were rejected here close to the 200 SMA, and definitely here as well. So good to see strength from this index. Good to see us back above the moving averages. Looking at the IWO, which is the Russell 2000 Growth Index, we're right at that 200 SMA as well as this prior pivot. And we'll have to see how it acts versus that level. Looking at the FFTY, the Innovator IBD50 ETF, this is still having trouble with its 50 SMA. There's a lot of kind of oil and gas names, I believe, in here now, which potentially also had kind of a negative trend change. But they're not acting great at this point, but they are still one of the leading sectors here. But yeah, we'll just have to see how this acts, whether we can push above the moving average and really start a trend towards that 200 SMA. And lastly, let's take a look at ARK. And you can see that we had a strong move up off the bottom, and we're back above that 50 SMA, above this pivot as well. But we're still in a very negative downtrend, and a lot of overhead supply here to deal with if it does manage to push up. So not really a focus of mine. A lot of these names, are off the bottom. It's going to take time to churn through all that overhead supply, even if they do start leading once again. So I'm kind of keeping an eye out for new leaders, new spaces to focus on. And speaking of that, these semiconductors really stood out late last week, especially Thursday and Friday. We saw a lot of breakouts in individual names, and you can see how strong the SMH has been off the bottom. A little bit unsustainable, this ascent here, but I'd love to see some back and fill. And once again, higher lows to form. And just start an uptrend back above that 200 SMA. But speaking of some individual names, we've got ON, which is super strong off the bottom, right near all-time highs. It's below here. I'd love to see a high handle form below basically this level before we try to break out into all-time highs. But this trend shouldn't be ignored. You've got nice earnings, sales margins. Let's open up this information as well, just so you can see the fund ownership. You can see increases in these high-quality funds, and a nice increase overall in the number of funds as well. GFS is a recent IPO that I've been watching very carefully. Once again, kind of challenging a key level here, straight off the bottom. So I'd love to see, as I mentioned, kind of a back and fill, maybe even a shakeout within here, get rid of all those stop losses, and then you can manage risk right at this prior swing low. So definitely an area which, has shown a lot of strength, and you can see the numbers here are really superb from this name. So semiconductor is definitely on my radar. Moving on, let's take a look at the mega caps. First, taking a look at Apple, strong off the bottom, back above the 50 SMA, but there's kind of an oversold rally, so I'd expect some back and fill at some point, and it's still got to contend with that 200 SMA, which is above and acting as resistance back in here. Take a look at Google. This is more negative than Apple. We're above that 21 EMA, but once again, it's kind of an oversold move here, and we're below a downtrending 50 SMA as well as 200 SMA. Bringing up Tesla, this is also pretty negative, below, declining 21 and 50 and 200 SMA. You can see how weak this is. And right now we're stuck below that 200 level, and also this kind of key level as well. So a lot to do here. And you can see the volume that's been selling off on. So pretty negative chart overall. And I believe, we're below all the key moving averages at this point. Bringing up Meta. This is also very negative, but we're back above that 21 EMA. You've got this gap down. Maybe this could fill, then that acts as a resistance. The 50 SMA would curl on down and, you know, be a confluence at that spot as well. But yeah, a very negative chart that I'm not really focused on at all. Yeah, this is just a stock that's not leading. It's broken and needs a full stage 1 basing process before I would even consider trading this name. Moving on, we've got Netflix. Let's take a look at that. This looks a little bit stronger. You can see the nice move through the 200 SMA, retested that area as well as the 50 SMA area, and a nice pop late in the week. So as I mentioned for a few months now, this looks better than most of those mega caps. And let's also take a look at NVIDIA here just for another frame of reference with regards to those semiconductors. Nice move off the bottom. Once again, a little bit unsustainable, but I'd love to see some back and fill. Let that 21 EMA kind of catch up to price, 50 SMA curl up, and then push up towards that 200 SMA. Also taking a look at AMD. Let's take a look at that one. Similar action back above that 50 SMA. So anyway, that's a quick run through of the major indexes as well as some key stocks to watch. Definitely positive action coming from that Thursday day. Let me go back to the NASDAQ 100 here. Positive expectation breaker, and we'll just have to see where things go from here on out. I'd love to see continued strength, more groups kind of starting to participate. And I'd love to see some handles form as well, giving us a chance to get into some of these strong names like AEHR. There's definitely some spots to enter back in this area, but recently it's just straight off the bottom. I'd love to see some sideways action, some flags, let that 21 EMA catch up to price, and definitely give an opportunity in this leader. So let me know your thoughts down below on this market. I think we're potentially in a tradable rally at this moment. But remember, you just got to take it day by day and manage risk along the way. There's a lot of Fed speakers as well next week, so keep an eye out for volatility because of that. And with that said, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.